Hi, my name is Dan Paulson, and this is part 2 in a series where I am updating my videos on the Gospel of Thomas. It's been a year since I did the first ones, and I've actually advanced my understanding since then, so I want to update that. You continue to advance with these, don't you? Anyway, this is the second video, so I'll post a link down below to part 1. If you're interested in this, you can go ahead and start there. Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell were incredible influences on me. And I began to take these verses and try to apply them to my psyche, to component parts of my psyche. And I continued to do that. And eventually, after a long time, patterns begin to emerge. And that is what I have spotted in here, is that there are patterns that are very repetitive patterns that lead you to psychological steps that you can interact with. But the patterns are difficult to see. They barely emerge. We can kind of see them without doing any interpretation. Karma, the measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you. We see crossover. We see those kind of things there. And then grabbing onto things like that and realizing that those are the same begins this process of realizing that they're using analogs. And by analogs, I mean that they're using items in the world to reflect something that's inside the psyche. And since Buddhism is very free with the definition on what karma is, we can take that as a fixed starting point. And since the Jesus version, that the measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you, it would have to be the same thing, that it's bringing you to a state of mind. And these are the things you start using to realize, okay, yeah, this is playing out up in the psyche. So that has to happen first. You have to discover the analogs, put them in place. And yeah, there's a network that emerges. It's a very visible pattern. Now, I'm not suggesting that is all that is there. Anybody else that wants to find other things out of here, by all means, go for it. I won't. I'm going to stick with this process right here. As within, so without. If something in the outer world is manifesting for me because of my inner world, I want to know about my inner world. I'm going to use these verses there. Whatever else happens after that will be a result of the progress here, I believe. So that's the way I read them. And this is not Gnostic. A lot of people think so. Oh, Gospel of Thomas, that's Gnostic. No, it isn't. And the reason I say that is because if you took Jesus's pivotal work, the Sermon on the Mount, the Sermon on the Plain, the Gospel of Thomas, those three right there, we can see are attributed there to somebody named Jesus. If you use this psychological process to decode them, you will extract the instructions for self-healing in the Sermon on the Plain, the Sermon on the Mount, and in the Gospel of Thomas. And there are many verses we know that are very similar, almost identical. But then the Gospel of Thomas kind of strays off a little bit and brings in some other elements. And the elements are actually really good that they're in there. The reason is because it almost made it a Rosetta Stone for me in this understanding that there is material in the Gospel of Thomas that comes from 500 years earlier. You can find it in Aesop's fables, The Dog and the Manger. There are some Manichaean elements in there. This is something that opened it up and made me realize that this is not an isolated piece of work, that this is a blend that comes from various places. And it's upstream from Gnosticism. Gnosticism emerged from this material. It references the Gospel of Thomas, it references Christ and Jesus. But anything in the Gospel of Thomas, nothing in there references anything that's Gnostic. One of them obviously came from the other, or is absorbed the other. I just go upstream. I want to go to the simplest source possible. And yeah, so here I am with the Gospel of Thomas. But the verbiage from Thomas is kind of a giveaway that it comes from other sources as well, where the stuff chosen to go into the Bible for the canonization leaves out those. All of the teachings are still in there, but just in different ways. In the Gospel of Thomas, there's a lot of different ways of trying to teach you to heal from different philosophical systems from antiquity. In my own imagination, if I look at the earth in my mind from somewhere out in space, detached from it and watching the history of things go on. You can see the emergence of people as they spread and move around, and that there's something that causes their life to unfold that functions in a certain way, and people get hurt. And there's one thing that makes everything function. However, what you observe from that position is you see like a network, like little pockets of things emerging here and there called religions and spiritual teachings and things that on the outside all sound different from each other. And they will, in many cases, fight and hate each other and say, we are the only right ones and everybody else is wrong. And to me, that's where religions reside. It's a very tribal place. But they don't think so. Yeah, they think they're right. When in all reality, no, there is one thing. That's what we're looking for. We have to be open to all the different teachings. So when somebody comes up and says, you're wrong, your religion is wrong, my feeling is this way at this point. If a person has a religion and they say, yeah, my religion is right and everybody else is wrong, then I believe that person not only doesn't understand other religions and what is nested in there, but they don't understand what they're carrying either. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is something that I haven't really covered very much. I talk about the kingdom of heaven within, this place that we're looking for, this happiness, this mental space, this state of being, this state of mind. And I want to identify that a little bit better because I have not done a good job with that here. I just take it for granted people know. So in Greek teachings where they didn't obscure it in religions, what they were, there's a term called Eudaimonia or Eudaimonia. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. It is Greek. And English translations are not exactly perfect, but it means like happiness or human welfare, a state of welfare, your own welfare. And a more accurate translation means human flourishing or prosperity, good life. Let me put a little bit of a face to this because this is what I experienced in life. We're probably on this path because we don't feel good. When we start out life very hurt, when we come from very hurt places, a lot of abuse, a lot of things that are not dealt with, and we're taught in life to shut up, keep it inside, which is actually is why we're trashed. Okay, so that's the point where we are. I'll just stick to myself. I start out life, and I am functioning at a very low energy level. I mean, I don't mean energy. I mean the way that I feel, the way that I sense life. My overall state of being is incredibly poor. I feel bad about myself. I feel hurt. I feel a lot of shame. I feel I'm going into life trying to hide that stuff because, yeah. And what happens? You're cycling along at a very low energy level, and I don't at a very low perception of way you feel. Your eudaimonia, your life is generally a low. And sometimes you might have something happen that spikes as a happiness, but generally you're down low. What we want to do is to raise, by getting rid of this stuff that we're carrying, it will gradually allow us to rise up higher and higher. We're still going to fluctuate up and down, but instead of maybe you might have a down once in a while, but you're generally operating at a higher level, people like to call that frequency. I don't like using other terms that are out there in the world today that are all over the place. People are trying to help you elevate your frequency. What does that mean? You feel bad, you want to feel better. So very clearly, we are not raising and lowering our frequency. We are raising and lowering our emotional state, our general state of feeling. But then the ideas come about that if we focus on this frequency or that meditation or something else, which are all marginally effective, you can feel better and say, oh yeah, I like that. But it's a very marginal, and you might rise a little bit or slowly, but generally it's not very effective because what you're doing is you've got all of this mass still in place, and what you're doing is trying to create a channel around that mass. And the frequency, the different things that we're doing there it's because we don't have time to meditate. So let's just put a frequency in, and something like that is going to give you something to focus on. It's a talisman. Your mind is the one that does it. If we were to go in and take the mass out, then it would just go up. Our our own energy level will suddenly go up. That stuff is keeping us down. It is keeping us down. We're trying to elevate up while everything that's keeping us down, we're trying to ignore it. And this material is meant to say, time to turn it in. Stop looking outward, look inward. When you're ready, here's the material. I believe if there's some kind of an afterlife or something to move on to, I want to know what this material is. And when I find that all of them contain the same thing, that gets my attention. We left off at 21, and I'm going to jump into 22. Jesus saw some babies nursing. He said to his disciples, "These nursing babies are like those who enter the kingdom." They said to him, "Then shall we enter the kingdom as babies?" Jesus said to them, "When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make the male and the female into a single one, so that the male will not be male, nor the female be female, when you make eyes in place of an eye, and a hand in place of a hand, and a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you will enter the kingdom." Okay, right here I want to let me make sure I reintroduce the idea that there's going to be 3 layers to this teaching right here. And I'm not talking about 3 layers of verse interpretation. There's something different here. The 3 that I'm talking about is number 1, the verse itself. If you read it, Jesus saw some babies nursing. He said to his disciples, "These nursing babies are like those who enter the kingdom." Now, if we analyze that using everything we've been doing, that has to be the physical world, because there's babies nursing. Now, that can happen in our psyche as well. These are things that you're holding inside of you, that you're growing stronger and stronger. If you've got anger or something like that, you can feed it and make it stronger. But you could have love and make it stronger too. So this could go either way. So it's like, oh, it can't work out. It doesn't have enough detail to it to say that if you want to enter the kingdom, then you're looking to get rid of divisions and anger, all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't make sense. But so this is actually right here, that's the physical world. And how you can spot this is right off is he doesn't really address that question. He sets it up. And then, so in this one verse right here, it's kind of like, it goes from an outer world to an inner world. And the transition is not smooth. You can spot them when they do that like that, or they happen frequently in all the material. It'll start off with something that is of the physical world, and the answer will be something that doesn't sound like a direct answer, but it plays out up here. So it's transitioning from there to there. And then, of course, as we're going along, it's sequencing the path that we're supposed to take. So we decode the verse, we transition from outer to inner, and we follow the sequence. That is all going to be happening here in the Gospel of Thomas. That's the structure of it. They said to him, "Then shall we enter as babies?" He didn't say yes. He said to them, "When you make the two into one, that is, we have become divided, now we want to become one. And when you make the inner like the outer, when we can make our inner selves reflect what we want to be outside, and the outer like the inner. We're trying to get ourselves together. We're combining ourselves, making the two into one." This is an incredibly drawn out way of saying make the two into one. The male and the female into a single one. This is the hierarchy, the consciousness, the subconscious. They become separated. You want them to be together again so that the female is not harboring ill children that act out, that we don't have issues residing inside of us. They're using these analogs to describe this psychological process that we can see, that we can extract from this. The male not be male, the female, the divisions, the conflict, the hands, the feet, all the up, down. We're just looking to be not divided. And I always throw in these cross-cultural parallels, but once you make the two into one, then you will enter the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is a mental state like Buddha's nirvana, and getting rid of all of your issues and becoming empty in Buddhism is how you get to nirvana. That's, here we have it. Those are the kind of links you find when you study everything, though, that helps you realize what they're doing is shifting the analogs to carry the same teaching. And then that helps kind of decode it. Again, kind of a Rosetta Stone kind of a thing is as long as you keep looking at a lot of different material and finding where they intersect and keep picking at those, it opens up from there. Jesus said, I shall choose you, one from 1,000 and two from 10,000, and they will stand as a single one. This one's a little difficult to rotate inside, because if I'm Jesus, I'm choosing one from 1,000. That makes sense. That's kind of like throwing your net out and catching in all the fish and just keeping the one big one or the one sheep. I will keep one out of 1,000. But then it says, and two from 10,000, and they will stand as a single one. I don't know. There's three there, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, ourselves. They will stand as a single one when we can become a single unit, that all parts of us are functioning in concert. Perhaps that's it. It also sounds outwardly, though, like few are called or few are chosen. That not many people will make it, that out of 1,000 people, one will come along, or, yeah. Take a pick. They both work. They actually both are viable. I couldn't argue with either one of those. However, one of them is psychological. That's the one you interact with. The other one you just go, yeah, I see that. If you can interpret it in a way to interact with it, that's the right interpretation. 24. His disciples said, show us the place where you are, for we must seek it. He said to them, whoever has ears should hear. There is light within a person of light, and it shines on the whole world. If it does not shine, it is dark. All right, before I move on with the interpretation of that verse, I want to talk about the disciples a bit, because I've mentioned it, and I really don't quite approach it, but simply because of the layering of it, and because you figure at some point people that are interested are going to look the stuff up. But here we have 12 disciples, which I'm going to suggest are inner human qualities. And if we identify the disciples and look at what their purpose was, or what they did, or what they were like, what they were emotionally like in this realm, what we find is Simon Peter was impetuous, emotional. He had courage and integrity. Andrew left John. John represented the old. Remember John the Baptist? And then Jesus was baptized. There's this transition, this handing off, this idea of, you started out in the physical world as a Christian, being baptized in water, but now we're shifting to being baptized in spirit, which a Christian would say, that means accepting Jesus Christ, where a seeker would say, that means you become the Christ and you go through this process. So the layering is definitely there, and it allows people to hang on to it that don't even know what it is. James the Greater, courage and forgiveness. He's going to be employed. Our capacity to have our strength and to forgive things. John, temper. He had an intolerant heart. No BS. And I'm serious about it. Is that you? Is this all of us? Philip, pessimistic. He had a warm heart, but it was always like, prove it. Show me. I don't believe things just because you say so. Bartholomew, he left royalty. He was a scholar. He studied. He was the one that got into this. He was the one that studied, got into the material. This is the part of us that is like ravenously hungry for knowledge. Matthew was the tax collector. He went from the physical to the spiritual. He left the past, the physical realm of the part of the world that, Thomas, doubts, pessimistic, needs to be proven things, then loses all doubts. That's another good quality to have. I have an incredibly strong doubting Thomas. James the Lesser, strong character, represents highest standards, very fiery. Simon the Zealot disregards personal suffering. I'm going to go for it anyway. Jude the Zealot, asked why Jesus only taught the 12. He didn't really show up much in the stories, but he was there at the Last Supper and asked him, why do you only teach to the 12 of us and not to the rest of the world? And Jesus' answer was something like, they're not ready for it, or something like that. And then Judas Iscariot, that's the part of us that betrayal, coveted, desire. We seek approval of power. This is really a physical sort of a world. And we deny that part of us that really needs to emerge. Desired wealth and hurt the others in conduct. He did come around in the end, but last. Everything else had to be done before our own denial was gone. That's what I'm going to suggest that the disciples exist for in these stories. And if you're all over this stuff looking for patterns, what you will see is that in the In the Bible, in the New Testament, it's very critical to maintain that 12 disciples, the relationship, which descends from what? The 12 tribes of Israel. It fits in that structure. It has to maintain that. Over here, they drop that out. There are disciples in here, though, but when they're engaging with the disciple, you're engaging with that disciple's qualities. And when we move along, that's what we'll take a look at. So let's go back to that verse then. It was number 24, and here we have, his disciples said, "Show us the place where you are, for we must seek it." He said to them, "Whoever has ears should hear. There is light within a person of light, and it shines on the whole world. If it does not shine, it is dark." Pay attention. This is where a lot of people will interpret things like this and say, "Oh, that's wonderful. Seek the light. I'm light. What we're really doing here is much more extreme than that. You need to turn inside and look at everything. You need to illuminate your past. You're going to have to show everything that's in there to yourself. Illuminating, becoming the light does not mean, "Oh, yay, I'm happy and everybody sees my glowing face." It means at the level of soul that I've went where my dark place is, where everything is put away, and I turn on the lights and I'm going to start dealing with it. That's what they had to do. Verse 25, Jesus said, "Love your sibling like your soul. Protect that person like the pupil of your eye." Okay, I will keep working them through here. Love your sibling like your soul. A sibling would be a child, like your soul. Love your sibling like your soul. Okay. Do you love your soul? Some people hate themselves. Doesn't make sense. Love your sibling like your soul. If you rotated it inside, a sibling is an offspring of the conscious and the subconscious. When the conscious has decided, "Oh, I hate something, and I'm going to hold it that way," there's your sibling right there. Or I love something, I'm going to put it there that way. Love your sibling. You can... Which one of those do you love? Yeah, see how it doesn't quite play out inside. It's a little bit difficult. It's kind of sticky. And then there was protect that person like the pupil of your eye. The eye in all of these teachings are, it's kind of like the channel that the cosmos, whatever we're, however we experience life and all of the things that we accumulate that get put in our subconscious, that is considered filling up the eye. When that stuff is in place, we experience our lives. We see lives through that. So it's being referred to as the eye because that is how we perceive things based on what we have accumulated. And in my searches far and wide, I think that the eye always refers to that. I've not seen it used elsewhere for other things. So the eye is going to be an analog always in the subconscious for the channel that holds all of the perceptions, the things that you see and experience life through, that gets you at that level of high or low. When that stuff is gone, the eye is clear. So let's just say that right there. So yeah, the suggestion here is, all right, well, let's just move on and see what we come up with because this is going to, something is about to be revealed here. 26. You see the speck that is in your sibling's eye, but you do not see the beam that is in your own eye. When you take the beam out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your sibling's eye. So there's a few layers of things going on right here. But this right here says you see the speck that is in your sibling's eye, but don't see the beam that is in your own eye. So the presumption here, So what I get out of this is that you got a big massive thing up in here and you're all messed up, but you're running around telling everybody else what their problems are. That's the image I get. I don't know if that's exactly right, but I sure see that. When you take the beam out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your sibling's eye. The sibling is we'll get back to that one. That shows up right here. But yeah, it's telling you that you can't help other people unless you help yourself first. You cannot see their life clearly when you cannot see your life clearly. Although we think we see life clearly. Remember 25, Jesus said, "Love your sibling like your soul. Protect that person like the pupil of your eye." You see the speck that is in your sibling's eye, but you do not see the beam that is in your own eye. Okay, a fun thing. In this translation, and in quite a few translations, and in biblical verbiage, what we hear is to remove the beam or the mote or whatever out of your own eye before you help your brother. This one go so far as to say sibling. And that kind of opens up new ideas because it shows perhaps lineage. We came from our parents who gave us our speck in our eye. They didn't see theirs. And so on. We're the ones at some point in time on this path are going, oh my gosh, I see what's going on. And if I don't get out of this, I'm going to pass this on to my sibling as well. Could that be? Well, the idea here, as we wrap it all up, that you cannot see clearly as long as your head is messed up, and just really straighten that out. Yeah, we need to go in and resolve our issues, period. The anger, the hatred, the shame, the things that we don't want to deal with, the stuff that makes us dark inside. That's what we want to do. And if we do that, everything else flows out from there. We don't care about anything else out there as long as this isn't straightened out. That's not going to be okay if this is not okay. We have to focus actually here. It feels here, but it actually resides here. The Jesus miracle of helping the blind to see. This is it. It's a variant of, take the beam out of your eye or help the blind to see. If you do not fast from the world, you will not find the kingdom. If you do not observe the Sabbath as a Sabbath, you will not see the Father. Fasting from the world means leaving it behind. You have to go in here. Fasting from the world, fasting, soul fasting, you're taking things in. You have to shut off all of the outside stuff that's coming in and feeding your head. So you have to fast from the world. And then you have to observe the Sabbath as the Sabbath. The Sabbath, we know what that is. That's the day you go to church and learn about God, right? So Sabbath here is you have now shut off the world. You are up here. This is your place to figure things out. This is where you need to learn what to do. 28. Jesus said, I took my stand in the midst of the world, and in flesh I appeared to them. I found them all drunk, and I did not find any of them thirsty. My soul ached for the children of humanity, because they are blind in their hearts and do not see. For they came into the world empty, and they also seek to depart from the world empty. But now they are drunk. When they shake off their wine, then they will repent. The first thing I want to say is wine. Drinking. Sometimes in Jesus' work it's portrayed as maybe a desirable thing and sometimes not. So I'm a little reluctant to make a call on those. I haven't quite figured or seen the pattern yet. I think sometimes drunk is not a good thing, but then he'll go to a wedding and change water into wine, bad wine into good wine, which makes you go, okay, careful here. What are we doing? So stay away from things that a little shaky without there being some sort of cross supporting referencing going on. I just wanted to say that. Anyway, Jesus said, I took my stand in the midst of the world, and in flesh I appeared to them. No, I don't know if he was in flesh or not. What is he saying there? Jesus may or may not have existed. We're looking at a body of work here. So there has to be something significant about that verse, or else maybe not. It might be a hook thing. I found all of them drunk, and I did not find any of them thirsty. But this sounds very much like I came to the planet, looked at humanity, and they had no idea. They were not awake. My soul ached for the children of humanity, because they are blind in their hearts and do not see. For they came into the world empty, and they also seek to depart from the world empty. Suddenly that transitions to inside characteristics, because we want to achieve emptiness. The world is not looking to achieve emptiness. So suddenly this isn't about the people in the world. If you look at what is happening out there, they're trying to gather things, not empty. They are pulling stuff in. The world is getting crazier. It's getting more confusing. This is not about the world. This suddenly, it only works in your head. If you want to depart empty, then that is about you. But now they are drunk. When they shake off their wine, they will repent. So that just means that it's the part of you that is not ready to move on yet. It's drunk. And when you shake off your wine and repent, then we'll move on. This will work internally, but you see, it's just doing the same thing over and over again. Super caution, though, always with terms like repent, sin, things like that. We hear it says when you repent. Repenting, we kind of tend to think in the physical world means that I'm going to admit when I've done something wrong. I got to make up for something I did. Yeah. But it's more than that, because we're holding things up here, and the term it's analogous to everything that we hold up inside that is derogatory, that is not good. Repenting means getting all of that stuff out, because if we don't, it doesn't change our life. So repent has to be that way. It's an analog for, emptying out the closet. 29. Jesus said, if the flesh came into being because of spirit, it is a marvel. But if the spirit came into being because of the body, it is a marvel of marvels. Yet I marvel how this great wealth has come to dwell in this poverty. Okay, here we have to start by defining marvel. Something that causes wonder or astonishment, intense surprise or interest, intense. It's not necessarily like Marvel Comics. Let's go have a fun adventure. This is just, wow, are you kidding me? So, if the flesh came into being because of spirit, wow, are you kidding me? But if the spirit came into being because of the body, it's a marvel of marvels. So what we have right here is, if I physically, my flesh came into being because of the spirit, that's wow, yeah. And that's exactly what happens. But if my spirit becomes a product of my life, the body, that's wow there too. The last line, yet I marvel at how this great wealth has come to dwell in this poverty. And verse 3, right in the beginning of the book, if you do not know yourselves, then you dwell in poverty, and you are that poverty. We have reference that we are the poverty. The great wealth has come to dwell in us, that poverty. If we don't know ourselves, this is another way of saying that. Jesus said, when there are three deities, they are divine. Where there are two or one, I am with that one. It is not a standard Jesus type of verse. He does not use things like this. Three deities being divine, where there are two or one, I am with that one. This one sounds a little looped. Yeah, it's not going to go in the Bible, is it? But I believe what I'm seeing here is maybe some shades from Manichaeism. Where there are three deities, they are divine. I'm thinking that the idea is that there are, we always refer to two parts up here, conscious and subconscious. But if you think about it, the conscious has two modes of operation, active and passive. And I think that when all three of those are working together, when the spirit, the soul, when all of your memories are fine and you're acting out fine, everything is good. When something happens, you suddenly shift into, now I'm going to process information and store it. And how it gets stored is how you create yourself. And in this process, if they are not combined as deities, I don't know what deity is here. I think that's another strange analog. Three deities, gods, things that just do everything right. I don't know. There are three. Anyway, I would say that when you're active conscious and your passive conscious and your subconscious are all working together, they are divine. And where there are two or one, I am with that one. I think that's Jesus saying, as you read through this stuff, make sure you remember that I am you. We are doing this healing process. Where there are two or one, we're divided. Where there are two or one. This one, this is not a standard Jesus teaching. This comes from elsewhere. I think we know Jesus tells us to make the two into one, and you can move the mountain. Now all of a sudden we've got more parts, but it does make sense. It's still analogous. It's still providing the same teaching. It's just adding in the other components that are certainly functional, and they're there. We still don't have to make up anything to interpret these verses and make them something that we can interact with to change our life. Jesus said a prophet is not acceptable in the prophet's own town. A doctor does not heal those who know the doctor. That one I know to be a very true in the physical world. As I grew and as I transitioned and as I began to learn, I went from being an individual that fit in one kind of an environment. And as I began to grow and realize, oh my gosh, I'm doing things wrong. I'm figuring things out. I'm going to come back and let my friends know, hey guys, look at what I did. I found that by admitting to my molestation and finding ways to heal myself, I don't think I made it much farther than that. Boom, that friendship was done. Get out of here. Yeah, I fit with them for a reason. I was ceasing to fit, and I'm doing things that they don't want to do. That's going to happen if you are on this path. You need to recognize that the people that are around you, as you're like, oh my God, guess what I just found? And this made me feel so good that you have got to hear it. Keep it to yourself. Or do like I am and just, find ways of not making it direct to somebody. Make yourself available. to help. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, the people around you don't want to. What happens then is you find things, and then as you move on, there are other people elsewhere that are interested in what you have. You form new groups. Oh, and honestly, if you're starting down low, like down here, and you're increasing up, you're also going to be changing your value systems pretty much. So not only will your friends say, hey, why don't you go away? You might look at them and say, oh, what am I hanging out with these people for? I hate to say it like that, but you know what? Be ready for something like that. There may be people in your life that are not going to go with you. It's telling you that you can't heal the people you can't teach or heal the people around you as you're growing, because they're not growing with you. And growing, we have to define that term too. People can grow, and people will say, what are you talking about? We all work and fellowship together. I'm talking about when you go, okay, I'm turning inward. I'm going into my head, and I'm going to start doing some shoveling and digging and monster killing like never before. That kind of growth. That's going to be different. 32. A city built on a hill and fortified cannot fall, nor can it be hidden. You're building the foundation of yourself, and once you've got to a certain point where you're confident with it, it's going to become unshakable. At first, as you're exploring, I'm at some point in my life trying all of those religions. They're like a wheel, and you're just, wow, what? There's something going on here, and it's very hard to be confident about things. Although you will find people at each one of those religions that are so confident that they drive me away because they're telling me BS. They believe it, but up here it's like, what? Where do you get that? Wishes and truth are different things, and wishes are usually pursued with much more vehemence. Well, once you get to a certain point, nobody will shake you, but at the same time, nor can it be hidden. You will. What you do will be evident. If we move on to 33, that's going to help us a little bit with this idea. What you will hear in your ear, in the other ear, proclaim from your rooftops. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, nor does one put it in a hidden place. Rather, one puts it on a stand so that all who come and go will see the light. This one kind of extends on. I don't know actually what you will hear in your ear, in the other ear, proclaim from your rooftops. That analog ear, I don't know what that is. What you will hear in your ear, it's not about hearing, because in the other ear, proclaim from your rooftops. So this isn't about hearing. They're using ear for something else. What you grasp, what you become aware of, then when you're ready, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Here we go to the next part, though. For no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, nor does one put it in a hidden place. Rather, one puts it on a stand so that all who come and go will see the light. Boy, and in this case, I don't know how to heal myself with this verse. But what I do know is that if I have healed myself, it is kind of something that is important for me to put out what I have found, to expose this knowledge, to illuminate it and let people come and go, and if they want it or not. I don't know. Is that right? You don't preach it. You make it available. People come and go, they pick it. Yeah, there you go. This is not preacher material. 34. Jesus said, if a blind person leads a blind person, both of them will fall into the pit. I'm going to become hated. A blind person doesn't get it. Those people that are confident teaching you things that they can't show you. To me, in my world, when you get to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I see that they are all the same, and they think that they are all different. They're all the blind people. And what are they doing? They're all leading. Yeah. You got to turn inward to find what's here. 35, Jesus said you cannot enter the house of the strong and take it by force without tying the person's hands. Then you can loot the person's house. This is the house. The strong man is the one that emerges from you. This comes out of you. It comes out of me when I get triggered, when I snap because I've just had it. And I scream and I yell or I punch holes in drywall or whatever it is that I do. I don't anymore. That's my story, though. If I want to get a hold of that strong man, I can't take it by force. When it's coming out, it's kind of like it's going to play out. You got to tie the person's hands, then you can loot the person's house. You have to realize that it's happening. What we have to do from other teachings is this realization that when we trigger and we get to a certain point where we're learning how to manage things, is that we catch ourselves. We usually don't catch ourselves right away. It takes a while. But I believe that's what they're getting to here, that there is something inside of us that is screaming and yelling to get out. When it comes out, you can't really deal with it. It's manifesting. It is alive at that moment. You cannot defeat it while it is alive at that moment. If someone's screaming and yelling and freaking out, you probably can't stop them. That has to play out. It has to finish its cycle. Then you can loot the person's house by tying hands. That's just be prepared for when it happens and start diminishing that, catching it, practicing. 36, Jesus said, "Do not worry from morning to evening and from evening to morning about what you will wear." Spiritual world, we're wearing clothing, which is what? That's analogous to covering up our fears, our shame, our pain, our hatred, our anger, all of those things. Well, we don't cover our anger, do we? So what this verse is telling us to do then, do not worry from morning to evening, all day long, day back and forth, what you will wear. This is telling us to not get wrapped up in what we hold inside of our heads. But you know what? That happens. Do not worry from morning to evening, from evening to morning. When you get messed up like this, where does your head go? It frazzles. This is, don't let your head get frazzled. Good advice. Can we pull it off? 37. His disciples said, "When will you appear to us, and when shall we see you?" Jesus said, "When you strip without being ashamed, and take your clothes and put them under your feet like little children and trample them, then you will see the child of the living one, and you will not be afraid." Okay, the disciples take on life as our characteristics inside that they're not able to function properly because we got our eye full of junk. We got our shame inside of there. When will you appear to us, and when shall we see you? When will we see our Christ nature? When will everything be okay? When you strip without being ashamed, and take your clothes and put them under your feet like little children. So now we're taking off all of the things that have happened, and that's going to be analogous towards facing the things that you hate, that you don't want to. That's taking off your clothes. When we get to that point, it's I'll do a video and walk people through that. That's a very difficult part right there, taking off your clothes. That is stripping off what you want to hide behind. Yeah, think about that. That's the worst. That's the biggest doorway right there. And put them under your feet. When you can put them between you and the ground, you elevate yourself. You will be elevated above the ground after you have been able to strip that off. You'll be like, "Oh my God, this is wonderful." Then you'll see the child of the living one. That is your pure soul. And you will not be afraid. Pure soul, pure mind. And I'm sure you caught what they did there. That the first verse, don't think about it all day long. How do we do that? Very next verse. You got to strip them off. Put them under your feet. That's how you do it. 38. Jesus said, "Often you have desired to hear these sayings that I am speaking to you, and you have no one else from whom to hear them. There will be days when you seek me, and you will not find me." Let me hammer this one really hard again. This verse, because it's an easy one to do it with. And it illustrates how to run a verse through some sort of a status check. If we start off and think this is in the physical world and that Jesus is physical and that's exactly what this is. It's just straight up about me and Jesus. What this is saying to me is that often I've wanted to hear what he has to tell me, and nobody will tell me. Nobody would tell me. But there will be days when I look for him and won't find him. Doesn't sound like anything that makes sense, does it? Jesus would always be there. You always, yeah. So this is another case where you run it through mentally and go, it doesn't work. Put it in the psyche, and what do we have? There really are not analogs in here, but what it's telling us is that we are looking for answers in life, and nobody knows what to do. We don't know who to get them from. There will be days when in my mind I seek this consciousness, this happiness, this peace, and I won't find it. I won't. 39. Jesus said, "The Pharisees and scholars have taken the keys of knowledge and have hidden them. They have not entered, nor have they allowed those who want to enter to do so. As for you, be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves." This is a reworked dog in the manger. It's the same thing. The Pharisees and the scholars have taken the keys of knowledge, hidden them. The Pharisees were people in Jewish culture that taught the scripture. Scholars, this is kind of like Pharisees and scribes, Pharisees and scholars. Scholars have hidden it in the material. The Pharisees don't know what it is. Scholars, maybe they did hide, maybe they don't know either, because it says, "They have not entered, nor have they allowed those who want to enter to do so." So we're trying to find this path, and we're following the teachers, and they don't know the way in, and they're not helping us get in. As for us, be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. I grabbed another reference here because I was like, what is the shrewd? What is the shrewd? And we have wise as another option. Wise, shrewd. I think we don't have the way to get in when we're not being showed. What do we have to do? We have to be wise. The innocent, I don't know. But it's up to us to get this figured out individually somehow. Edited in. This stuff keeps growing with you as you play with it. And yeah, it just does. Okay, so I figured out after that last piece there what innocent is. Innocent is free of shame. Yeah, innocent of what it is that you hold. We have to become free of that stuff. It isn't about innocent in the world. Anyway, they're analogs that it's a word that is carrying a meaning in our psyche. 40, Jesus said, "A grapevine has been planted away from the Father. Since it is not strong, it will be pulled up by its roots and will perish." I think why I struggle with these a little bit is I think that maybe the Gospel of Thomas tried to maybe do the opposite with some of the, or they did analogs a little bit differently than what went into the Bible in the Matthew and Luke accounts of Jesus' teachings. There, a grapevine is generally grapes are good, figs are good, thistles are bad, things like that. You can see that there is a very classified, good or bad. In this case, the grapevine has been planted away from the Father. Since it is not strong, it will be pulled up by its roots and will perish. If you plant any idea and never pull it up, never address it, it's there. It's rooted there. So in this case, the grapevine doesn't sound like a positive thing. It sounds like there's something there's something growing in your garden that is away from, and well, it says away from the Father. I don't have that identified. We know what the kingdom is. We know what the kingdom of heaven within is. The Father, I kind of always use it as maybe the conscious. A grapevine has been planted, a concept has been planted away from the conscious. Since it's not strong, it would pull it by its roots. And that's got to be it, huh? A grapevine has been planted away. Except that a grapevine is not being used as, it doesn't say whether it's good or bad. It says pull it up by its roots and it'll perish. That's it. Whatever you have to dig out of you, you got to get at the roots, the point of origin, the source. There we are. 41. Whoever has something in his hand will be given more, and whoever has nothing will be deprived of even the little that person has. This is actually, this section right here is on healing, telling us how to get rid of things, but Pulling them out by the roots was the last one. In this case, what we have, when you have issues and you don't resolve them, you're going to get more because they're unchecked. You're going to network that way. As you diminish and get rid of stuff, you de-network from that, it's going to quickly improve. At first, it's hard. And you might resolve something and feel good and then find a bunch of other issues. It depends on what you want to do, though. Sometimes people just have one or two big things that are haunting them so bad they need to resolve them, and they're good. They're good. They don't have to worry about anything else. So at any rate, this is letting us know that, yeah, as the worse we are, the worse life is. The better we are, the better life is. 42. Become passers-by. Before I get to that, let me say something. There's a lot of Jesus said, Jesus said, Jesus said, Jesus said throughout here. And I think that is the book cover in a place where all of this is getting passed around word of mouth. You need to make sure that the material stays designated as its source. I'm leaving it out of here just because I type with two fingers. And I have to look at the keyboard to do it. Okay, become passers-by. Let go. We're in the psyche. What do? We need to let go of the things that we're holding on to. We need to become passers-by. A passerby means that you're not holding on to the things. You're just going right on through. And there we have that. 43. His disciples said to him, "Who are you to say these things to us? You do not know who I am from what I say to you. Rather, you have become like the Jewish people, for they love the tree and hate the fruit, or they love the fruit and hate the tree." Okay, look at it closely. Who are you to say these things to us? They're the disciples, parts of this is inside of us, our characteristics, maybe. It's kind of a setup here. Who are you to say these things to us? And he says, you don't know me from what I say. So we don't have a verbiage thing going on here. And we're in a section where they're talking about healing, about getting things out of us, about pulling roots out and whatnot. This is where it comes down to the teaching right here. Rather, you have become like the Jewish people. Jewish people is an analog for the seekers. That's what they're using. It is us who are looking to heal. For they love the tree and hate the fruit, or they love the fruit and hate the tree. What is it? We love the tree and hate the fruit. We love to party and we love to be irresponsible and then go, oh crap, now I got to pay the price for it. Or they love the fruit and hate the tree, where we like to have a really good life, but don't necessarily like to put in what it takes to get there. Okay, so people in life hate to do this. They don't want to look inside. They don't want to heal, but they hate their lives. And if they want to love their lives, they do have to turn inside. You have to go weed your garden. Okay, 44. Whoever blasphemes against the Father will be forgiven, and whoever blasphemes against the Son will be forgiven. But whoever blasphemes the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven either on earth or in heaven. Okay, right off the bat, we can see the first two sentences, or the first sentence, really doesn't matter. Well, of course, we have the Father and the Son right up here, but there's a forgiveness there. We don't have an issue. The last line, that's where the problem comes in. But whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. That's the one we got to go to. Let's figure out what that is. The Holy Spirit is going to be the part of you that functions in the background. It's the part of you that makes you what you are when you're not paying attention. And if you ignore that, or I know blasphemy is usually like speaking against God, but that's how it's used in a religious setting. It could also just be irreverence or denial of. And that's what is coming across here. Blaspheme, yeah, you have to not ignore the stuff. 45, grapes are not harvested from thorn bushes, nor are figs gathered from thistles, for they yield no fruit. A good person brings forth good from the storehouse. A bad person brings forth evil things from the corrupt storehouse in their heart and says evil things. For from the abundance of the heart, this person brings forth evil things. Alrighty, this is all about us. It took me a while to finally rotate it all in. The storehouse that we have is our heart. What we have here is that grapes, the things that we want, don't come from bad plants. When we have bad concepts, bad characteristics inside of us, that's what's going to emerge. A good person brings forth good from the storehouse. When we observe our actions, everything's fine. When you see people acting out, that's what's inside of them. Watch yourself. This isn't about other people, although when you get to a point where you've cleared out your own, you could see it in other people. But in the beginning, you just have to focus on yourself and say, yeah, this is all about me. Watch myself. And this stays consistent with all of the teachings as well, as far as, being armed to, get the strong person, all of those things that are teaching us to self-observe, watch ourselves, see what comes out of us. Here we are. Are these coming online? The analogs, seeing the analogs, that's the slowest part. That is the slowest part. We can see really simple analogs. When they get more complicated, you have to pull them in and see what they're doing. But yeah, that structure is there. The hierarchy and all of that is always in place. 46. From Adam to John the Baptizer, among one born of women, there is no one greater than John the Baptizer, so that his eyes should not be averted. But I have said that whoever among you becomes a child will know the kingdom and become greater than John. He's telling people following this religious tradition from Adam to John the Baptist. Born of women, the physical world, there is no one greater than John the Baptizer. He was very much a Christian or a follower of Jewish faith, somewhere in there. I don't know. It's a story. It's not, I don't believe any of these people existed. I believe that these stories are meant to contain something for us. If we make it history, it's actually tough to find what's in here. Now, actually, what we do is we're decoding. We make it not about the individual, but conceptually about what the individual represents in the story, what their role accomplishes in a transition from the physical world, spiritual world, somewhere right in there. John the Baptizer, so that his eyes should not be averted. If you are a Christian, keep your eyes on John the Baptist. Yeah, keep your eyes on the physical. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on praise or whatever. Stay close. They're teaching Christianity. They want people to stay as Christians. However, if you become a child, you will know the kingdom and become greater than John. You will not simply say, my life sucks. I turned it over to Jesus and, it still hurts, but at least I feel okay now because I have some kind of a future opportunity. This doesn't go there. You see that? You become a child, you get rid of all of this stuff, and you will become greater than John. You will become greater than the conceptual idea of simply worshiping Jesus. You're actually following a path that has been laid out if you turn it inward. Jesus said, a person cannot mount two horses or bend two bows, and a servant cannot serve two masters, or that servant will honor the one and offend the other. Okay, the bows and the horses. Yeah, you can't pick one. Pick one, do one thing, pick one kind of life and do that one kind of life. And a servant cannot serve two masters, or that servant will honor the one and offend the other. All right, remember that earlier verse, the oddball one that was the three gods, where there are three gods, they are divine. We have three things right here, don't we? Two masters and a servant, which would actually fit with what we were talking about back there. The two masters this is a hierarchy, only instead of there being one in charge and one acting out, there's actually two masters. So this would really kind of maybe provide a little bit of basis for us to solidify the idea that perhaps they're referring to your active and passive mind. In this case, we have two masters. There's the old self and the new self. And the servant is something that has been put away, that is going to act out, and it's going to dishonor what you want while it is honoring the past. Then it goes on to say, no person drinks aged wine and immediately desires to drink new wine. The wine, yeah, the way we feel. The wine is what makes us feel a certain way, and the aged wine, the old way of life, I think we desire changes. We don't know what to do, but we do want new wine, a new feeling, a new way of life, but it might take us a while to get there. No person drinks aged wine and immediately desires to drink new wine. Yeah, that's it. It's kind of hard to make that transition sometimes. But new wine is not poured into aged wineskins or they might break. So your new life, the new way you feel, the analog for the wineskin, the wineskin is an analog for you. You are the wineskin. You are the vessel. You are what holds things. New wine is not poured into aged wineskins. You cannot put a new life into your old life, or it might break. You cannot just leave the past in place and say, I'm going. I don't care anymore, because you will be dragging it with you. And aged wine is not put into new wineskins, or it may spoil. So once you do establish or are establishing getting your new wineskin, which of course is analogous for having a fresh start, a rebirth, getting your eye cleared out, all of those things. And, you can't put your aged wine, if you have moved on or you're trying to move on and you're kind of falling back, you're going to struggle. An old patch is not sewn onto a new garment, for there would be a tear. This time we are the garment. That's the component that is holding things. An old patch, the old way of life, is not put onto the new way of life. So that one is just another way of saying new wine is not poured into aged wineskins, or they may break. 48. If two make peace with each other in a single house, they will say to the mountain, move from here, and it will move. We're getting this by now, I'm sure, huh? To us, if we're not combined, we're going to have issues. If we have regrets, if we ever do things, well, you get the idea by now. This is pretty simple. And say to the mountain, move from here, and it will move. Where do we find this elsewhere? Bringing in parallels again. If you make peace with each other in a single house, Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching teaches that if you judge something, you have named it. And then that is how you flow in life, the Tao, how you flow in the Tao. If two make peace with each other in a single house, they will say to the mountain, move from here, and it will move. You're not going to move a mountain, okay, literally. So what you have is what you have here is this idea that life will work better for you if you make the two into one. We see parallels in other Jesus teachings. The idea that if you have a gift to leave at the altar, but you have aught against your brother, to go make peace first before you come and give your gift. If you're giving your gift, you're looking for God's good graces, living in a better way of life. And if you are looking for that, a better way of life, but you've got issues, go resolve those issues first. All of these are getting us to the same space up here. 49, blessed are those who are alone and chosen, for you will find the kingdom, for you will come from it, and you will return there again. More of the same. I don't have to hammer on that one. 50, if they say to you, where have you come from? Say to them, we have come from the place where the light came into being by itself, established itself, and appeared in their image. If they say, is it you? Say, we are its children, and we are the chosen of the living Father. If they ask you, what is the evidence of the Father in you? Say to them, it is motion and rest. Yay, fun. We won't find this in the Bible either, huh? Not things like this. The first part, if they say to you, where have you come from? If they, who are they? Where have you come from? We have come from a place where the light came into being by itself. This is where it gets really goofy. Came into being by... Let's leave that. If they say, we'll get back to it. If they say to you, is it you? We are its children. Right there. Bingo. Children. We are the children are the offspring. The children are the things that we hold inside of us that are products of our thinking, of our life. We are its children, and we are the chosen of the living Father. The living Father is our conscious mind during life. We are choosing, and that is what makes our children. If they ask you, what is the evidence of the Father in you? Say to them, it is motion and rest. Cycles. What is the evidence of it? Is motion and rest. Something is coming out. The children are emerging. We go back to the first part. If they say to you, where have you come from? Say to them, we have come from the place where the light came into being by itself, established itself, and appeared in their image. The image that we're looking at here, it's a difficult thing. The image is not an image. It is something that is emerging based on the emotional state of a memory that we're holding inside of us. That's where things came into being by itself and appeared in the image of what happened. We have a shameful something happen. We now have shame, and it's cycling out again. This is, I don't even like this verse. It's too thick to say something that's very simple, that should be simple to say. It's a very thick. 51, his disciples said to him, when will the rest for the dead take place, and when will the new world come? Bingo, we just took that last verse into this. He said to them, what you look for has come already, but you do not know it. So our disciples, our characteristics, when are we going to, when is the dead going to take place? When are we going to get rid of that stuff and the new world come? And this is like in the beginning again, the first page, when he said to them, what you look for has come, but you do not know it. Everything is here. All the pieces and parts are in place. We don't know it. 52, his disciples said to him, 24 prophets have spoken in Israel, and they all spoke of you. He said to them, you have disregarded the living one who is in your presence, and you have spoken of the dead. This one's really fun. 24 prophets. Those are just Jewish lineage of prophets in this, and they're all saying there is going to be an emergence. What is the emergence? The emergence is that people always find this. That's really the emergence. They make it sound like it's something special to them, but around the world, this always happens. People always find this stuff. But the masses don't. So they're asking him about the prophets, and what is he saying? You have disregarded the living one who is in your presence and have spoken of the dead. If you're speaking of the dead, you're reading it literally. The living one now is the one here. And yeah, there will be that continual emergence. Very simply, this is telling people to forget about that past. Deal with right here, right now. That past is meant to carry this moment. Does that make sense? Yeah. And there's an analog for that. Call it an arc. The teaching all over, everywhere, are arcs. They're carrying this teaching. 53, his disciples said to him, is circumcision useful or not? He said to them, if it were useful, children's fathers would produce them already circumcised from their mothers. Rather, true circumcision in spirit has become valuable in every respect. Well, how fun is this? Don't cut the foreskin off boys' penises. It's a good way to start off with their trauma, right? This is a traditional thing that they couldn't think of some better analog than that. That's just crazy. We're going to go ahead and cut parts off. And this can happen to... The circumcision in spirit has become valuable in every respect. You're supposed to cut that stuff off. That's what it was about. The circumcision wasn't about cutting off the foreskin at the nested level. It was about cutting off the stuff that you need to get rid of. 54, Jesus said, blessed are the poor, for yours is heaven's kingdom. Poor in spirit, empty, heaven's kingdom. Good eudaimonia, nice flow in life. Living in the graces of God. All of the above. All right, I'll go ahead and finish this video up. I have actually, I started it over a number of times because as you go through the material and you continue to go through the material and you continue to see things, I would actually interpret something and then get down the road a little ways and realize, no, I got to go back and redo that. And it kind of emerges like that. That's, that story about feeding the multitude and having more left over than when you started. That's it. That's what will happen. It just works that way. It's a flowing network, and it just grows that way. But nothing special there. Anything you study, you will get better at it. But this stuff continues to emerge, and you begin to see the patterns more. Anyway, feel free to leave questions or comments below. Hope you enjoyed it, and love one another. I'll see you in the next video.